True crime story is another crazy one and evidence of the fact that statistically, women represent the highest percentage of victims that crimes of the past decades, even up to today, are perpetrated against. Support our channel to help support our campaign against femicide. The suspect at the center of today's case is a man who was residing at Klamath Falls in the United States of America, who has been accused of posing as an undercover police officer, kidnapping a woman from the state of Seattle in the United States of America, sexually assaulting her, and then continuing to drive her to his home, which is about 400 miles from their first point of contact. And then it turns out that he had actually built a homemade cinder block cell in his garage, and then he locked her in this cinder block cell. Yeah, this is what somebody slept, thought about, set out, planned, and executed, while some of us were sleeping, trying to think of how to make the world a better place. The man at the center of this is 29 years old, Negasi Zuberi, also known by other aliases such as Justin Joshua Hyche, and he has been indicted on charges of interstate kidnapping and transporting a woman with intent to engage in sexual activity. Negasi was arrested in Nevada last month, July 16th, and is expected to be returned to Oregon where he will face prosecution. The woman was able to escape from the cell, however, by repeatedly beating on a metal screen security door and ripping through it with her bare hands until she bled. And at this point, Zuberi has been linked to violent sexual assaults in at least 3 other states, according to what FBI and the Klamath Falls police have put out. So it's evident, and I have this theory, although not something established, but I have this theory that with crimes like this, I don't usually think that this was his first time. I think he may have done it maybe twice, thrice, or even 4 times in different forms, but with similar outcomes. And this might be the point where he's escalating to another level altogether. Now, according to police, this woman's will to survive may have actually saved many other women, because who does this to bang on a metallic security door and rip it open with your bare hands? And she's no superhero like maybe Superwoman or whatever. She's a regular woman who attempted to save her life because she was not ready to go off the face of this earth at the hands of this man. Disturbing evidence collected by investigators so far points to an individual's ongoing and escalating pattern of violence targeting women in multiple states. It's exactly as I said. I don't think that this was his first time, not even his second, third, fourth, fifth, or maybe even sixth. I think he has been evolving, he has been escalating, and he finds some sort of edge or drive from perpetrating these activities against women. And as we go on, you'd find that it's not just against women as a gender, but he also targets women in a certain specific occupation. You'll find out his reasons for doing that very soon as well. Now, Negasi Zuberi has actually lived in 10 states over the last 10 years. And according to FBI investigators, they suspect that there could be other sexual assault victims. In addition to Oregon, he has lived in California, Washington, Colorado, Utah, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Alabama, and Nevada since 2016 August. Investigators indicated that they haven't found any connection between Zuberi and a series of women found dead this year in and around Portland. A Portland man has been identified as a person of interest in the suspicious deaths, but faces no charges. Police haven't yet said how these women in this other case, which might not be related, died. Now, like I said earlier, Zuberi was arrested on the 16th of July in Reno, a day after the kidnapping, after Nevada State Patrol officers located him in a Walmart parking lot with his wife and one of his children. He was then taken into custody after a 45-minute standoff. We'll get to the standoff as well, and you see how crazy and twisted this guy was. But just so we are clear, this guy wasn't some single dude just trying to figure out his life. He was a father and a husband. And I always say that when it comes to the commission of crimes or the committing of crimes, if you're a father and a husband, you definitely have to think deeper before you decide to go down that path of committing a crime, maybe more deeper than a single guy would have to think. That is my theory, because you have other people depending on you. You have other people whom your actions are going to affect. Look at this. He has kids. This is all over the internet. I'm actually doing this from Ghana, and I've heard about this. It's a legacy issue for his children. They are going to grow up, they are going to see all these things. So it's expected that as a father and as a husband, you think deeper before you go down this path. But then again, that is the voice of common sense speaking at this point. And it's becoming obvious that the person we are dealing with is past common sense. He is going with his instincts as a predator, at which point common sense to him does not make much sense. Now, during this standoff, Zuberi initially refused to get out of his car. He proceeded to even cut himself with a sharp object and attempted to destroy his cell phone before he was taken into custody. Zuberi asserted his right to remain silent during a federal court appearance in Nevada. Now, according to officials, cases like this alarm them. And even no matter who you are, whether you are a seasoned investigator, it would alarm you, because it is that kind of case that is unusual from most of what they handle. Exactly. Sometimes it's as if you are dealing with two different people. Imagine you are one of his kids he was with at the Walmart car park, and suddenly your family is surrounded by the police and your father starts cutting himself, destroys his mobile phone, gets in a standoff with the police, and imagine the traumatic experience it will have on the kids especially. But it doesn't seem like he cares. Now let's get into the day of the kidnapping so we can understand the method to this guy's madness. Now, shortly after midnight on the 15th of July, 2023, Zuberi approached a Washington woman near Aurora Avenue in Seattle and solicited her for sex. Now, after having sex with the woman, Zuberi flashed a badge claiming to be an undercover police and pointed a black and yellow taser stun gun at the woman, handcuffing her and putting iron shackles on her legs before moving her to the back seat of his car. Let's analyze this. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know the state of mind of the woman at this time, but obviously she'll be traumatized after she got arrested. But then it's a dead giveaway if you are truly an undercover cop that you go soliciting for sex from a sex worker and you actually go on to engage in the sexual activity with the person, after which you then arrest her. It doesn't make sense. If it was a possible sting operation, they may consider soliciting, but they wouldn't go through all the way to perform the sexual activity with the person they're about to arrest for what the person is doing wrong. Then you become complicit. So that was a dead giveaway. But hey, I have the benefit of not being the victim and sitting back and analyzing this after it has happened. So I'm not blaming the victim in any way. and to go to the extent of shackling the legs of the victim. I don't think that is standard police arrest protocol. So obviously this guy was trying to pass off as a fake police officer, and he was just trying to be a predator in this case. He put her in the iron shackles and then he moved her to the back seat of his car. Zuberi at this point claimed that he was taking the woman to a police station, but then instead of that, he drove south on Interstate 5 into Oregon. The woman spotted a map app on Zuberi's cell phone and noticed it showed him as 2 hours and 4 minutes away from his destination. And this led her to recognize at that point that he wasn't a real police officer and she was being kidnapped. Yeah, like I said, maybe at the point of the arrest, she was being traumatized, so her senses were not that sharp at the point. But having gone for that long drive, she would have collected herself to a point. So I'm not surprised that she was now so self-aware. She observed some of these things, and then she was able to put two and two together to know that, hey, this guy is fake. So at this point, it became clear to her that no, she wasn't under arrest, but that she had rather been kidnapped. Now, during the 450-mile trip to southern Oregon, Zuberi found time to stop and force the woman to engage in sexual activity with him again. About 7 a.m. that day, he pulled over at a truck stop north of Klamath Falls, pulled a hooded sweatshirt over the woman's face, and then drove her to his home in the 1300 block of North El Dorado Avenue in Klamath Falls. He then placed her in a makeshift cell he had built in his garage, made of cinder blocks, and locked the metal door. The woman, fearing for her life, repeatedly banged on the door. Let's pause here and analyze again. This is the same house that Zuberi lives in with his wife and kids. So my question is, when did he even build this cell? And how come his wife never got to know? That is one of my $1,000,000 questions. I don't know, and it's not being reported, whether maybe she got to know, asked him, and maybe he lied about the purpose for which he was building it. If that was the case, that is a different outcome. But the question is, when did he build it, and did she ever get to know? And if she did she bother to ask any questions? And at the time that he brought her in, where was his wife? At the time of the banging, where was his wife? All that is yet to be clarified. So I'm putting these questions out there. If you know the answers, just let me know in the comment section. Then, after she kept repeatedly banging on the door, she realized that she had been locked in the cell, illuminated by a single overhead light bulb for at least a couple of hours before she was finally able to bend the metal of a security screen door of the cell and crawl through a small opening. Here you could see that this woman was fighting to live. She was fighting to survive. Earlier on, she felt maybe she was under arrest, so she felt subdued. She succumbed to the law. But when she realized that I'm not dealing with a true police officer, I've rather been kidnapped, the fight or flight adrenaline kicked in. This is what I think. I think that it was fight or flight for her, and she bided her time because she couldn't have done this while Zuberi was around. It could have escalated into something else. So I'm sure she bided her time and waited for signs to be sure that he is no longer around, in which case she had time to pursue all this and eventually be able and successful to escape. Now, once she was out of the cell, she saw Zuberi's car in the garage, opened one of the car doors, grabbed a handgun from inside and ran out. Exactly, fight or flight. She was now armed because at this point, she knew, I'm sure, that if Zuberi saw her outside, it was going to be a different thing altogether. So she took the handgun, ran out, climbed over a fence, and ran down the street, screaming for help before a passing motorist picked her up and called 911. Now, the woman was taken to Sky Lakes Medical Center for a forensic examination and treatment. It was later reported that when she was interviewed at the hospital that day, they used cell phone technology to track Zuberi to Reno. Turns out Zuberi had found out later that she had escaped, so he was actually on the run. Now, according to police, the victim is strong and courageous, and right now she is physically okay. So, like I said, fight or flight. And once that adrenaline kicks in, trust you me, you can do things you would never have thought you can do on a normal day. Investigators from this point went to the home of Zuberi and found blood on the wooden fence that the woman had scaled. Klamath Falls police obtained a warrant to search Zuberi's home on the 16th of July and discovered the cell. Police also found several handwritten notes, including one that had a drawing of how to dig a 100-foot deep concrete block cell with foam insulation, according to what has been put out. Now, one of the notes had a heading that read Operation Takeover. Let's pause here whilst I do an analysis. What does that mean? Operation Takeover. Who is running that operation? Obviously, I think it's Zuberi. I don't know if he has other associates. But Operation Takeover, what are they taking over, or what is he taking over? I think this guy may have psychotic issues or may have some mental health issues that may come out later, or some schizophrenic issues or something. I'm no medical expert, but obviously he believes he was on some sort of mission, by what I'm seeing. That's what I think. It's likely he felt he was on some sort of mission. So he had that written out, Operation Takeover, and he had gone further and described plans to leave phone at home and also make sure they don't have a bunch. These are things he had also written down after noting that title as Operation Takeover. He had also written down key points, according to him, which may be key per his twisted mission, that you are to leave phone at home and you are also to make sure they don't have a bunch of people in their lives. So that statement, leave phone at home, I'm sure he meant it as a means of not getting tracked. And the other point about making sure they don't have a bunch of people in their life, I think this has to do with his potential victims when he's targeting them. And so you would now understand why he didn't target just any woman, but he targeted a sex worker, knowing very well that some of these women in this trade don't really have a lot of family or loved ones around them, because mostly they might usually be ostracized or rejected by the society and may even be resorted to drugs, and some family members may not even bother to keep in touch with them. So more or less, people no one would miss in his mind. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. If you don't, let me draw the similarity here. This is a similar trend to that of the Long Island serial killer or the Gilgo Beach killer. It also involved mostly sex workers. So it's looking like they are becoming the easy prey for these serial killers and serial predators. It is not yet clear to me, or per reports out there, it's not yet clear how Zuberi was going to end it with this woman if she hadn't escaped, but I'll get to that point eventually. He had also written that you don't want any type of investigation, and I think this is just to add meaning to the first two sentences, that you do all these things because you don't want to draw any attention to yourself, which would lead to an investigation about you. Now, let's talk about the quick thinking of this victim. So, Zuberi also goes by the name Sakima, and he may also have dragged women's drinks and impersonated police officers in other states before. This Washington woman who was kidnapped, chained, sexually assaulted, and locked in a cinder block was still very sharp enough to think very fast. She beat the door with her hands until her hands were bloody in order to break free. And I think that this was going to be a timed activity because she knew the window of opportunity to do this and be successful was not huge. Zuberi, although he may have gone out, wouldn't stay out that long. And in this situation, you wouldn't even know how he's going to end it when he comes back. Is it possible he was going to take her life after he was done with whatever twisted purpose he had for taking her? We don't know. And as the victim, trust you me, she wouldn't want to wait around to find out. Now, it is fortunate that this brave woman escaped and alerted authorities. And it's also very impressive that law enforcement took quick and swift action and were able to get Zuberi in custody the next day. So the case is still ongoing, and authorities didn't identify the other states where they said Zuberi has had linked to sexual assaults, citing their ongoing investigation. Charges have not been filed in those cases yet. So I think that this case is now building up. I think it's going to be bigger. I have a feeling it has started like how the Long Island serial killing case started. It started from just one complaint, and then it started unraveling and uncovering other cases. I think this is how this case is also going to play out, although no murder has been cited yet, but at least the trail is going to get bigger and the victim list, I'm sure, is going to grow. I don't know if at a point dead bodies will come up because, like I said, what was his end game with this woman? After keeping her in the cinder block cell, doing whatever he would have had in his twisted mind, what would he have done finally with the woman? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Because he can't stay with her forever. At a point, he would want to, in quote, get rid of her and make room for somebody else or shift his camp or tactics to something else. So, what was going to be his end game? I'm hoping it will come out. And if this is not him escalating, but this has been his trend for some time, then how did he end it with previous victims, if any? These are questions that are worth thinking about. I don't know if you agree with me. Let me know in the comment section. If you think there are other questions too that I'm not asking, let me know in the comment section as well. Now, in some of those other cases, Zuberi posed as an undercover officer or solicited the services of sex workers and then violently sexually assaulted women. And this is per what the FBI is actually saying. Now, some of the encounters may have been either filmed to make it appear as if the assault was consensual, and often the victims were threatened with retaliation if they were to notify the police. So, like I said, this case is going to get bigger. I think this is just the genesis. Now, a LinkedIn page under one of his aliases, Sakima Zuberi, accompanied by his photo, says he had been studying cybersecurity at Klamath Community College since April of this year. It also says he was self-employed for a New Mexico-based company by name 43 Organization, which provides housing rentals. Records also show he had lived in Vancouver, Washington last year. Now his landlord, Abhishek Kandar, sought to evict him from the rental home in November, citing a list of violations that included unauthorized people inside the residence, unauthorized pit bulls on the property, the changing of the home's locks without permission, and damage to the home's patio screen door, air conditioning insulation, door frames, and patio blinds, according to court records. Someone who had contacted police in December said that she felt he was up to some shady stuff and about to do something bad. Exactly. I don't know who this person was, but trust you me, sometimes you can feel it. Sometimes you get this airy feeling about certain people that, the way this guy is moving, the way this guy is going about certain things, an incident has come up, and the way this guy is answering questions, the way this guy is so slick, you get this airy feeling that no, this lady or this guy may be up to something, but you can't put your finger on it and you don't readily have any evidence to raise an alarm. So I understand what this neighbor felt. Zuberi responded at this point that he had only guests at the home and was fixing anything that was broken. The civil action to evict Zuberi was dismissed in January because a summons hadn't been served properly, according to records. Yet, a judge in late April ordered the property to be returned to the landlord. His landlord went on to say that Zuberi had caused a lot of problems for people. Now, it wasn't clear at this point how this case was going to end with regards to his eviction, but then it was said that somebody lived with Zuberi for about 6 months last year in the 4-bedroom house in Vancouver and paid Zuberi $700 a month in rent. Now, this person said he thought Zuberi was the homeowner until he later learned that he was also a tenant. So you could understand the concerns of the landlord. Now, also living in the house where Zuberi's 2 young sons and their mother, his wife, were, along with another man and another woman. He said that Zuberi and his partner fought a lot and that Zuberi was adverse to police. Zuberi kept about 5 to 6 pit bull puppies in a cage in the home and was selling the dogs. A neighbor in Vancouver had obtained a temporary protective order against Zuberi in March. The neighbor complained that Zuberi had sent him a threatening text message that month and had falsely claimed he had sexually harassed one of Zuberi's acquaintances. Zuberi also had threatened to harm other area residents. At the time, Zuberi drove a grey Honda SUV, and a judge dismissed the order on April 18th when neither Zuberi or the neighbor showed up for a scheduled hearing. Under another one of his aliases, Haich, Zuberi has convictions for possessing a gun in a public place in Chicago in December 2020 and a 2016 conviction in Kern County, California for driving more than 100 miles per hour and driving with a suspended license. Working with the FBI on the Oregon case were Klamath Falls Police Department, the Oregon Department of Justice, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and also the Oregon State Police, the Reno Police Department, the Nevada State Police, and the FBI's Las Vegas office. So at this point, this case, like I said, is just growing. I think that this is just the genesis. There are more serious things to come for Negasi Zuberi. I think that he has a shady past. He has a lot of skeletons in his closet, probably, and the police and other security agencies collaborating are going to expose a lot of things, and I'm sure they're also going to get shocked by some of the things if they aren't already. What do you think about this case? What do you think about the growing percentages of victimization of crimes towards women, and what do you think can be done to resolve this issue? But as I've always been saying, he is innocent until proven guilty by the courts of justice. How do you think this case is going to play out? I don't know if there is any argument that can discredit the findings of the police that Zuberi is at the center of this. His wife has also been interviewed, and she is saying that she just can't believe her husband has done all these things, and that he is the father of her children and she still supports him and stands by him. What do you think about that? I don't want to comment on that yet because he hasn't been found guilty yet. But let me know what you think about this whole case and how it is ongoing. 2023 is seeming like a crazy year. The Brian Koberger case is ongoing. Lori Vallow Daybell has just been sentenced to 5 life sentences for what she did to her kids, and the wife of Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell's day in court will come, God willing, next year, 2024. The case of Rex Heuermann is still ongoing as the Long Island serial killer key suspect. This has also come up, Negasi Zuberi, alongside other crazy cases that are also building up, and I'm tracking these and I'm bringing you updates as and when they are due. But hey, please stay safe out there, keep an eye out, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Turn on post notifications, leave your comments in the comment section, support our campaign against femicide by sharing our videos, and I'll catch you next time.